Hello everyone, welcome to Wild Wild Wes's Gelvin Valley for Farming Simulator 15. Still having a high old time on this map, and you're probably all pleased to know we are almost done cultivating. Got this field and field 47 to do, and then we'll be done. One little thing I want to show here real quick. I'll just deviate from this just to show this, and hopefully the mod keeps working. Notice how this is fully grown grass, and I know at last time, or maybe it's the time before, I spoke at length about having this pesky cultivator come by and wreck all the grass. I failed to also mention I put the map in the editor, the save game file, and I fixed the map borders for the most part and put it back, including probably putting it on a couple of areas where it wasn't even previously. And I also mentioned mod fixes. It had something to do. I got the ability to turn field detection on, hitting the O key. Well, I wanted to do something else, and this was a suggestion by Russell, who commented on a video, or he told me offline, or gave me the idea somehow. The idea is rather than having the cultivator go over the edge here and do nothing, why not reduce the grass to the mowed state? And because if in real life, if you take a cultivator over ground that hasn't been cultivated or plowed and it's just grass, there's a hard pan in the air, you're gonna leave a lot of material. You aren't gonna totally damage it. So I thought, that's an interesting idea. So let me see now if this does what I wanted it to do. And as you can see, what I have it doing now is, as I go along the edge, it's going to mow the grass. You see it reduced it, but it doesn't kill it. It doesn't take it out. It just reduces it, knocks it down, as it were. But there is a huge difference if grass is somehow growing on the field. Well, then the way the coding is working, or is supposed to work, who knows how much more testing I'll need to do. But it is supposed to take out that particular grass. So it's supposed to make a distinction between worked and not worked, and obviously along the edge of the field we are on unworked ground. So just did a little test right there for all intents and purposes. So hopefully at some point we'll try to take as much as I can going around this silly thing to get this done. As you can see, I have this rented for another 4 minutes, and then it's gonna re-up. So I'll be glad to get this task done. And you heard me say it now, never again will I choose, did I get the corner? I did. Choose to have a cultivator this large. Alright, lift it. I may just keep going with my round and round. The other field, that we'll be doing is larger than this one. Oh my god, this is already choking on pulling the hill. Yeah, and the other problem is I chose a tractor that was underpowered for the job. But anywho, just taking a quick look at the weather real quick, I notice we have hail coming, and today is nice. What time is it? Today is almost done. So I do have a hail damage mod in So what I'm going to try to do, I think, is skip a day, or at least I don't plan on starting to plant until the hailstorm comes through. I seem to recall that I could plant, and maybe I could. The other mod I have in here too is the growth states don't change, until midnight, so it would be kind of in the planted state all day long. So maybe that would work, and I could still plant. But I got some other things I need to do in here. It's been a while since we have picked the fruit in our orchard. Probably all of the trees have replenished, regrown. So I'll need to do that. I kind of think, well, let me just, while I'm yammering about it, just go take a peek. Went too far. Feeding trough. I think I've commented before, it's amazing how little the sheep or the animals eat at times for what they produce. I did go up there off cam after the previous episode to see how many pallets of wool we had, and to make sure that the stacker unit or whatever that they're on is empty enough that it could still hold some. I was disappointed last time that it seemed to fill without filling up the whole organizer unit or whatever there. But we'll see what it does this time. Maybe it glitched. Maybe I need to go move a few pallets off of there. Matter of fact, almost even the last time there was a couple extra pallets that I stacked to the side. Woo! So anyway, as we come back around kind of by this area where I mowed the foliage by dragging it across there, I may try to release it at some point. I don't know. Someone may be interested in that. So we'll see, but I gotta do some more testing. I need to make sure also that it works functionally with the plow, I think. So the plows, will have the same, and I gotta test that, of course. But basically have the same effect that when they're dragged along those areas, because you can choose, of course, in this version, whether the plows even create a new field. So if you're allowed to choose, well, then why not have it have the same behavior as a cultivator at least? Because it would look weird to have the plow go along there and not do any damage to the grass, whereas a cultivator turns it to, the mowed state. But kind of as I was saying, the biggest problem I had, and this mod, will be defeated by it too, unless I can build something into it. Roll the contract, shoot. But it was the chop straw mod that defeated it, because it didn't pass enough arguments to make the function go properly. Not even in game, let alone, with the modifications that I had. So I may see if I can build something. That'll be a new area of Lua coding. I know there's a way to do it. I just need to figure out how, where one mod can modify other mods, if it detects their presence. So I know there's a way to do it. I've done it before, but it's, I admit again, I am not a coder, so everything I do is kind of with a lot of heavy experimentation and rinse, repeat over and over until the silly thing works. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. That's what we'll try to do in game here. Now, back to a topic at hand with whatever time I have left. I'm just looking at my little... I got a little over 20 minutes. That should probably be enough. I hope I'm not boring everybody to tears, with talking about, this little property that we have down there. But we continue to work on it. Why are you going so slow? 3 miles an hour. Yep, very underpowered tractor. But I know I've related that we dragged a house in there, or they brought in a double wide. It was in 2 pieces. I think I relayed we had to take out the mailbox and a bunch of other things, that were in the way so they could drag it in. It's no small feat. They manufacture these in a city that's maybe, 20 miles from our home where it's at. So they bring it down the interstate highway, motorway for those listening maybe from another nation that wouldn't have the same terminology, but they haul it in with a truck, and the motorway is pretty straight, so negotiating exits and all that they got to worry about. I think they have a pilot car, that takes them along and helps escort them down the roads, but then the real twists and turns, of course, happen once they get to the country or to, the location where they need to set these homes. So once they got on site, I don't think the truck brought it around into our driveway. I almost think that they detached on the road and they had another vehicle, looked like a little caterpillar tracks. Again, just a small thing, just wide enough, big enough to haul it, but narrow and small enough to navigate some tight corners and all that. So that brought it into the place. 2 halves. They put it over the pad that it poured. Well, since the moment that they brought it in, I remember, so I didn't go up and around. We'll just sneak in here and actually, I don't know if I should start up on this. This is kind of a steep hillside, actually. Take care of these pesky weeds. And I'm glad I no longer have to worry about the grass. Yeah, it's going to destroy all those weeds on the field, and it'll mow on the edge, but it won't destroy them on the... Nice, it's behaving. I likes what I see. Anyways, I was saying they got this house onto... Man, I need to slow down. This is... I gotta remember, I guess I'm doing it at the outer edge. I don't run into a fence. See, half the time it's going slower than molasses, and then all of a sudden it says I need to speed up. So they've had it on site. Oh yeah, that's going to take out that other foliage. I don't want to just destroy all of what was... Oh, that's going to... Oh, it just missed the fence post. Can't talk and chew bubble gum at the same time, apparently. But they got the house in place, and they put it on some kind of stilts underneath, and actually I don't know if it's totally on stilts, but it comes in, on some kind of chassis, and I think the house remains on it with whatever additional supports, that they put under the house to support it and hold it up, but it's all got the concrete pad even underneath that. So the 2 halves, and I thought this was kind of symbolic. I guess I'm sentimental that way, but it's going to be a place where my son and his fiance, well, not fiance, I shouldn't say that, his wife, once they're married, the 2 of them will live there. It is taking out some of the grass. I guess I can't help it. So they, the 2 halves of the house You know something? That is taking out the grass again. Sorry, folks. Or is it? Let's inspect. No, maybe not. That's mowed. But that is taken out. Maybe depending on what the... That's some wonky physics. That's just gonna bear a little watching. Probably all depends on what signal is being sent to the work areas at any given time. Probably should turn on the lights. Anyway, I'm trying to blabber out a tale on what we're doing here with our home, or the home that we're putting on the property down there. The two halves were symbolically married together, if you will. You know, if you go inside the house, in between the two, there's a big old crack down the middle, of course. Now they have filled it, with some kind of material, just before they get the floor going on there. Some dude is in there working on the floor, of course, putting in the flooring, but it's all set, ready to go. They since have done some grading kind of around the place to level the dirt out. For a while, it kind of looked like it was sitting in a hole. Someone that looked at it, we had some company over, went down to take a peek, and they said, well, maybe it's for the moat, to have around the castle. Very funny. Not that you'd want to have water sitting down there, but now that they kind of leveled off the dirt, it looks really good, and they since have built also stairs to access the front and the back of the house doors. And I think my son plans at some point to, I missed that little dab, I think I did, plans to make his own. I think he wants a deck maybe off the front of the house, or something. I guess that remains to be seen. With that, there's a lot of hard objects we're navigating on this too. Oh yeah, you bring a big old cultivator into this corner, and should it be any surprise, actually, you know what, that wasn't too bad now, was it? And we took care of it in one pass. Yeah, it's doing what it's supposed to. I guess I was worried for a moment it was deleting the grass, but I guess it's doing it. Maybe at this vantage point, this high up, it's a little hard to see, but man, we are just booking here, which it allows us to do. Yeah, I'll be glad when we get this first pass done. And we are taking out a lot of weeds too, by the way. Never fear, I got a mod coming that may potentially put some of those back, which I'll describe in a later episode. Alright, I think we can rest a little easier now that we've done the outer round. So anyway, the house is well on its way. Oh, and maybe I'll mention one other thing. Here the other night, last night I guess, we had a little bit of rain, and it was on the forecast. Of course, we all know weather forecasters aren't always right, but they forecasted some to come in roughly around midnight. There were some threatening clouds. And so my wife and I, we were down there kind of just observing the progress, and before we left, she pointed out that whoever's working on the floor and the baseboard, it's one of the subcontractors of the general that's running this, he had left all of the baseboard material just sitting out in the weather. And, ordinarily, I don't think it would matter, if you're having sunny weather, and we did. I mean, we had sunny weather for quite a long while. We've had at least a couple of weeks of it, I would say. So it's almost like the contractor did check the weather report, or whatever, but she just noticed an ad and we were looking at it, and the baseboard material, I mean, we aren't having anything super fancy going into this house, so a lot of baseboard material, which I don't particularly like. We may end up replacing it, I don't know. But it's particle board that they have painted over the top of or whatever, or it's not quite particle board, it isn't that granular, but it isn't regular wood, if you will. So you just know that if it's exposed to moisture inside the particle board, it's going to expand it, it's going to bubble, it's going to ripple the paint, whatever. Whereas, if you have real wood, it isn't going to have that effect on it. I know we've seen it in our house. Anytime you have that material around your shower or bathtub, over time you just notice it starts looking bad and the paint bubbles and you get all sorts of problems. Well, anyway, this is the stuff that they were putting on the house. So we were thinking, well, if it's going to rain, that's going to potentially destroy all the material. And, it wasn't our responsibility, but what we did is we went home, we got some tarps, and we went and we covered all the material. And I think it ended up saving this guy some money because, he reassured my wife later, hey, I wouldn't just put bad material in your house. Well, we didn't know. I mean, for all we knew, even if it did destroy it, he was, would take it and put it in her house, if the damage doesn't happen right away or whatever. Well, he told my wife he wouldn't do that. And apparently, he told her also, yeah, when it started raining, here, let's get my GPS on. He said the first thing I thought about was all those boards, sitting out there in the open. It's like, well, yeah. And, when my wife, she also called the general contractor to communicate on it, and he told her, well, I think the guy put it inside the house for the night. And my wife says, what do you mean? We saw it with our own eyes, it was on sawhorses sitting outside. Oh, yeah. So mainly we wanted to communicate, hey, just so you know, this is the kind of person you have or kind of contractor that you have as a sub. And, if this isn't the quality signature you want to leave on your work, maybe you have a little chat with them. Anyway, I don't want to be mean about it or anything. And the old adage, you pay for what you get. Well, hey, I know that's true. We're not putting in some highfalutin fancy house. I mean, let's be real. This is a trailer. But it's also brand new. It's a real money, a lot of money that we've spent on it. So I don't want to just put junk material in there. We've already gone inside and have seen some of the issues that it has. And I think some of it will be covered under warranty, but some of the drawers and cabinets are stiff and it's hard to open them. It's like, geez Louise, as the old timers say, they just don't make stuff like they used to. Well, I don't consider myself an old timer yet, but I would say the same thing. When you slam something out in a factory, or if it isn't your home that it's going into, well, maybe you just don't take quite the same level of care. But I don't know, I'm sounding ungracious. It'll all be okay. But I learned one other thing. I can't remember if I mentioned this, in a previous video. As I mentioned, this was a subcontractor and a general. Well, the general contractor runs everything on site, is responsible for the whole project or the project as a whole, and gathering. And if he or she can't do it themselves, they of course, will ask other people to help, and those other people are subcontractors. And sometimes the subcontractor can even have the most significant portion of the price. In this case here, the most significant part is the house itself. Well, those that are constructing the home are a subcontractor of the general, and paying for the home. We paid it all through the general, and he then sends payment on to the sub. But here's a little thing that I learned, and I'm both thankful for getting the letter and a little irritated that nobody said anything about it, and irritated at myself for not remembering it. My profession, I work with many contractors, helping them with their taxes or financial statements. And so I know a little about the industry, and I had forgotten that there is such a thing as a construction lien. And it's law, so by law, it is what it is, but I gotta say, I really don't like, how it operates. So if you are an unscrupulous general contractor and you hire a bunch of subs to work on a project, and then the homeowner, in this case me, or whoever you're working for, they pay the general. That's where all the money goes. You generally don't pay the subs. The general is supposed to pay the bills of the subcontractors. Well, what do you do if he doesn't? And so I received a letter from one of the subcontractors. I don't even remember who or which one it was. It doesn't matter. They probably all were supposed to send it to me, but they just very politely told me that how the arrangement works, and they said if we don't receive payment from the general contractor, we're going to establish a construction lien on your property. And I read this and I'm going, what? That doesn't seem right. So at this point, as of the date of the recording here, we have paid pretty much everything to the general contractor for every service that was in the bid or that was going to be done, except for a holdback. And I think the holdback is 5% or whatever. And the purpose of the holdback, that may also be by law for all I know, or maybe it's required by competition. But really, it represents the profit, if you will, in the work, or thereabouts. So before they receive profit, they need to have an inspection. The homeowner needs to be happy with it or whatever, and willing to cut the final check. So I am thinking that's the only leverage that I really have left, other than legal means. And of course, I wouldn't want to go there. But I am thinking that I need to do something to make sure the general has paid his subs before I give him, the final payment. Because I don't want to all of a sudden pay every nickel to the guy, and then if he's in financial difficulty, all of a sudden hear from his subs that a payment hasn't been received. And so the question I have in mind is, how am I going to do that? I can ask the guy, well, have you paid your subs? Oh, yeah, I've paid them. Well, hey, I'm a CPA, I'm an auditor. I audit companies, and you don't go off of people's word. Hopefully if you have good people, their word is worth something. But, you can't audit or verify something without looking at some substantiation. Oh, that's silly. I'll get this on the way back. Am I really pulling that steep of a hill? Come on. Do I have that much damage? Where's my damage? I can't really tell. 3%? That ain't bad. Oh, well. There, it's picking up a little bit. So maybe one thought I have is asking for who the subs are and contact information to call them and verify that they have been paid. But the trouble with that is he could just give me a fictitious list, and call his buddies or give me names of people he knows and tell him what to say. So that isn't foolproof either. I could demand to see check payments and records, and that might be worth something, but I don't know. I don't want to be unreasonable either, but I'm almost positive I've heard horror stories of, other homeowners where they've had a lien put on their property to pay the subs because the general didn't do it. Well, I don't want to get in that circumstance. And maybe the best I can do, since I was sent this letter, by one of his subs, is I can at least call them and ask, if they've been paid in full. And yeah, I really don't. I maybe need to talk to. I know of several contractors, and just ask them, because they'd be independent of this, what would you do, knowing the industry, knowing the concept of construction liens, how would you handle this, to make sure, you're protected. And I know some construction, will be covered by a bond, construction bond, to where if there's a lack of performance on the part of the contractor, the bond will cover it. But I almost think the ad's for the work itself. I don't know if the ad also covers a lack of payment, but maybe it does. So anyway, I'm just kind of wrestling still with that particular issue because I don't want to get to the end of this and have paid all that money. To be one thing if I took on debt, but even then, you still got to pay the debt. There's just no getting out of it. And maybe what I gotta remember is there's probably insurance for this kind of thing. Maybe bonding is kind of what it is. It comes at a cost, but maybe the ad is in retrospect, something I should have looked into to protect the family wallet. Might have been worth a little bit. But the thing of it is, if you're dealing with a reputable party, and I believe I am, there should be no problems. I'll pay him, he'll pay his subs, and that will be that. So that's a resolution I'm obviously hoping for in this case. But it is, I'm kicking myself that I didn't really think about it more, kind of at the get-go. Anywho, we are cultivating probably one more episode and we'll have it wrapped, and we'll get ourselves onto some other activities in here. Thank you for visiting good old Gelvin Valley with me. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.